So we're here, Makers Making Podcast, episode 2, with Steve from Steve Builds. You may know him from his YouTube channel. If you're watching me, I guarantee you've watched Steve. And member of the Voron Design Team, uh, mastermind behind the Voron Trident. I have sitting over here, and I know Steve has a
Awesome.
couple of them.
hmm
Um, so, Steve, welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thanks. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. This is fun.
Yeah. So I see you have a couple projects sitting there behind you. But I'd like to start off not with where you are now, but where you started out, your journey as a maker.
My journey as a maker. So, I've always liked to do things with my hands. We joke about on my streams the Steve unbuilds time, where we're taking apart something or whatever. My earliest memories of working on stuff was taking it apart. I never put something back together. Any toy I would get, as soon as I was bored with it, I was attacking it with a screwdriver or in whatever way. If I couldn't get it apart, it was not unheard of to break it apart.
Yeah.
Needed to see what was inside. So lots of just fascination with what was inside of the things I had when I was a
Yeah.
kid. Um, and that just continued on into just generally working on things, bicycles and different hobbies, rockets at the time, and um, stuff like that. I used to get like electronics um, books and stuff, and I tried to some of the old electronics books where you're wrapping your own varnish insulated copper wire around a nail and creating a magnet.
Yeah.
And I used to make these whole contraptions on a piece of wood where I had things going on and I hook a battery up to it and it'd do this thing or little simple motors, stuff like that. So that's all ages ago. But then it just turned into, I mean, my dad's a mechanic. He's always been super handy into all the RC, and he was really into planes, um, and cars and just uh, general making. So a lot of stuff he did back then. We did if you ever heard of the black powder, um, it was a historic reenactments.
Okay.
That'd
Yeah.
be probably a really generous term, but it was, you would make things the um, from the time period, the 1800s, and but the go staying away from the obvious focus of that, but all the stuff around it, working with leather and working with um, wood tools and putting in brass inlays into things and just watching all of that, uh, growing up around that and having a dad that did that kind of thing, it just kind of I think it was ingrained in me. So
Yeah.
I've always.
That,
Oh, go ahead.
that tends to be a common storyline with most people that are building and making stuff. That passion started and passed down from father to son, father to
Yeah.
daughter, whatever. But it's definitely a generational thing.
Yes.
But
But then
the
getting.
reenactments are cool. I grew up on the East Coast, so
hmm
I was an hour from Valley Forge and pretty close to Gettysburg and stuff like that. And the reenactments were always uh, an awesome thing, and the work that those guys put into those
Yeah.
costumes is incredible.
Yeah.
Do you still have any of that stuff?
Oh no. I mean, I was around it as a kid. I never got into it as an adult. Um, my parents separated, And although my dad's always been a part of my life, or had been a part of my life, um, I didn't really pursue that. It wasn't really in my. Uh, I was more interested in electronics and computers and stuff. So I took I mean, this was quite a while ago, an electronics course in class in school, and our high school teacher was awesome. He was an older guy who had been a barber for most of his life and had some life-changing experience and went back to school to become a teacher, and he was an electronics teacher. And I remember in that class, we used to make projects with old copper clad PCBs, and we'd be making project boxes with these. So you'd be soldering the edges of them together to make project boxes. And we used to take the same copper cladding and use a hacksaw blade and scrape our own traces to make different circuits. So
Oh, that's pretty
one of
cool.
yeah, so our first project was always to make our own little um, conductivity probe, where
Okay.
so we had the almost every project you could think of in this class either had copper clad in some way or another and old 35 millimeter film canisters. So
Where'd the 35 millimeter film canisters come in?
So the couple of fun things that we did with those is for the continuity probe, you would poke a hole in the end and you take a paper clip and you solder it to your copper clad and you make the right cuts and put in a resistor and an LED and a 9-volt battery, and you
Okay.
can stuff all of that inside of a 35 millimeter film canister. You make it so
Nice.
the LED pokes out the lid and the probe pokes out the other end, and then you have a flying lead. So then you could check continuity on
Yeah,
stuff.
kind of like your old continuity testers for in
Hmm.
automobile testing. You just hook up to
Exactly.
your yeah.
So
Nice.
the other fun project, because there was a whole segment in there on static electricity and generating it, and we had Van de Graaff machines and um, what's the big globe? Um,
Oh, the Tesla thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
but there's a bunch, but what we would make in class are Leyden jars, and you'd take a 35 millimeter film canister and some rubber cement, aluminum foil, and a paper clip. And you would line the inside and outside with aluminum foil, stick it to the inside and outside with the rubber cement, and then you would bend a paper clip with a loop on the end, take it through the lid of the 35 millimeter film canister, and then put a bend in it so it would touch the aluminum foil on the inside. So if you took that and you went up to a TV, and at the time all the TVs were CRTs. So
Yeah.
if you remember, you turn on a CRT and you get that fuzzy feeling on the front.
Yeah.
You rub that on the TV, the end of that on the TV, and then walk over to your little brother or little sister and touch them with it, and it gives them a static shock.
I almost want
So
to make one of those now, but I haven't had a CRT TV in a long time.
uh, I'm not going to say the way that we really had fun charging those. I'll
Well,
tell you after stream.
you can tell me later.
Let's just say that my friend had a one of those big black trampolines,
Oh,
and you can tell if you've ever had one of those, they can generate a ton of static electricity.
yeah.
So
Yeah. I got a little 4 foot one in the house
mhm,
for the little one, so maybe
it
we can
would
make
work.
something work with that.
It would work. Yeah, have one of your kids rub their head on it. Both their hair will do this, and then you can charge your Leyden jar. If you can find those film canisters, you can probably make something though. I bet you could print
Uh,
something.
I've I've actually got a few of them still. Um, they're all like the clear ones though. They're not like the black ones where the lid snapped
Hmm.
around it. They're the clear ones where the lid snapped inside of it.
Hmm. Keep talking because I might actually. Well, I guess I don't have it handy, but I actually still have some of the copper clad from that class. This is the kind of stuff we were working with.
Oh, nice.
This is from 30 years ago.
Yeah. But it's those kind of projects though that are fun, but you learn so much of a base
Yeah.
foundation for stuff that you know if you're the right kind of person, you tend to expand on that tremendously. I'm going to turn this off because this is going to nonstop beat.
Yeah, that class was really what taught me how to solder, what taught me the a lot of foundations in um, how this stuff works. Um, so
Yeah,
the different techniques. We did everything from electroplating. We used to electroplate copper onto quarters and um, all kinds of stuff.
yeah, electroplating's fun. I learned that when I was a kid. I grew up. My father was a mechanic as well. He served in the military as a mechanic, but he grew up on a farm, so grew up working on everything. Um, but I learned how to electroplate to rechrome car parts.
Hmm. Yeah, there's so many stories from that class. I attended it. I did 2 years of electronics in high school, and then later on they did a program. I don't know if this is the precursor to first robotics or something, but in high school there was a little robotics class that we did a kind of a pilot program. Me and about I think it was two or three other students, um, and we never actually did anything with it. We had a um, a little programming environment and a framework for the hardware, and we were using some of the stuff we were able to get from the electronics class and trying to build something. But that actually got me, that was my first exposure, real exposure to using a PC. It was pretty late in life that I started using a PC. It was in my junior senior years in high school,
Uh,
especially compared to
and
now.
that's what you found yourself doing with for a career, right? Is computers and IT stuff.
It, hmm Yeah, so I worked for a local computer store up there in Red Bluff out of high school, and got a good um, a bit of experience troubleshooting problems and dealing with customers um, and such, and leverage that into the working where I am now. So started there as a student assistant. I went to started school and I never got anywhere where it really mattered, but my intention was to be a mechanical engineer,
Yeah.
and I burned out. So I had my computer skills to fall back on and have ridden that ever since.
Yeah, schooling is one of those things that get your foot in the door sometimes, but
Hmm.
most of what the people that know a lot learned it outside of school.
There's a
Um,
lot to be said for some of the foundational information you get
oh,
in a
absolutely.
technical degree, though.
I'm
So
I'm considering going back right now for electrical engineering, whether or not it turns into anything for career stuff will be seen, but you
yeah,
know, it's something that's of personal interest to me. I want to learn this stuff.
yep, yep.
And
If
so
you can,
sometimes
it's
building those foundations.
yep. But yeah, the beyond that, I did a lot of car stuff for a long time, and in between that are so the way I work as far as hobbies is I cycle between them. Right, you get super intense um, in whatever hobby it is. So I'll get really into RC cars. I'll get really into working on a full size car. I'll get really into riding bikes, any of that kind of stuff at a time. 3D printing has really been the longest lasting, most intense hobby I've been a part of. Over the years, off and on built quite a few different RC cars, and really the core thing that comes back to is I like the build.
Yeah.
It's fun to play with when it's done, but I get most of the enjoyment from the build.
Yeah. Everything that I've done on the same way. I did RC cars, and I had a lot of stuff, but the ones that I really liked were the ones that like were pretty much 100% custom. Yeah. But it sounds like eh, I I I'm the same way. Everything, if I'm doing it, I'm doing it 110%, and uh, I know that can be trying on the people around us.
The thing that probably used the most of anything I build, at least in the past, was computers. I did, I mean, the custom computers and going to the computer shows years ago and picking out each individual part. I mean, it's basically the same thing as if you're shopping across Newegg or Amazon or whatever now. You pick
Yeah,
up individual parts and build it. Um, but then going in and doing like wire management and custom wire lengths and stuff like that. But that is the thing though, that once it's done, I end up there. You have to use it. That's the that I would do that to my only computer.
yeah. Is that something that you still do from time to time?
Every PC that I have has I've not bought a pre-made computer that wasn't a laptop, a portable.
Yeah,
So any desktop I have, I've built. Um,
it's on my to-do list as well, but I keep sinking money into other hobbies. It,
yeah.
it's it's gotten more reasonable the last year or so, though, to get into computers as a hobby. There for a while, it was prohibitively expensive.
Yeah, the problem, or more than a lot of hobbies, computers are impacted by market
Yeah,
and RAM prices and popularity, and I mean more recently the popularity in
crypto
video
mining.
cards, crypto mining,
Yeah.
raising the prices of that stuff. So, although when I started at the computer store, it was I think we basically estimated that RAM was $40 to $50 per megabyte.
Oof, Jesus. Yeah, computers was
And
never something I got into until I needed it to do other stuff.
yeah, if you
So
extrapolate that out to current RAM sizes, it's millions of
yeah,
dollars for the RAM that's in a computer. And
yeah,
I was working at the store back then. There was a very specific period of time, point in time, where RAM went down in price. It went from this $40 or $50 to like $20 per megabyte. And we had inventory. So there was a whole thing of old inventory versus when RAM finally went down in price. And
yeah. Kind of left holding the bag on that one a little bit.
but yeah, so computers and RC cars and cars. I spent a ton of time on cars, rebuilding engines and modifications, and nothing what most people would consider super fun, like no muscle cars, nothing super fast. We were modifying Dodge Neons and
Yeah,
in the kind of on the edge of the import car scene, the early 2000s, and um, we were the outsiders with our American little cars, but doing
yeah. That was a transition phase, though. You know, between the '80s and the early '90s, where classic American muscle was still a thing, you know to the
yeah,
post Fast and the Furious era, where it was the four cylinders, the whether it was import or domestic, the that type of stuff, and you know. it seems to have
Mm.
very much stayed in that realm ever since. I I know you said you've got a Subaru STI, right?
Do. Yeah.
WR or WRX. What do you got?
It's an STI.
It's an
Yeah.
STI.
Yeah.
So
So,
you still got a little bit of that in you, then, huh?
oh, very.
I won't
Um,
ask you if it's modified. I know you live in California. I'll assume it's stock.
I'll talk about it a little bit. The When we were doing the neon stuff, it was a lot of fun to take them out autocrossing. Have you ever done autocrossing
Once,
or seen it?
once.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it several times. I tried my hand at it once. Was not I was not great at it, and a 71 Nova with a big block wasn't the way to do it anyway.
Yeah. So the neon was a pretty good car actually for that. It was competed nationally. Good drivers on it could compete nationally with it. It used to be big into the SCCA solo. SCCA Solo 2 is autocrossing, and there's another road course. They used to have a neon challenge, and then they used to have a celebrity challenge using neons for road course stuff. But we had a lot of fun getting them set up and modifying them for autocrossing. And that's been kind of a reoccurring theme of the cycle of hobbies coming back and wanting to do things is autocrossing. So I did that as with the neon for a long time, and then got rid of it. I bought a 2008 STI shortly after I got rid of the neon. I had that for 11 years, ish, from 98 to 2008. Um, and when I bought the STI, I took it out a couple of times autocrossing. But I had it for a while and then got rid of it and didn't have anything fun for a good while. I had my Nissan truck um, and such. So the cycle of hobbies came back around, and I started looking at what I'd want to grab, and the Subaru BRZ was kind of
Oh yeah,
a
they're
fun.
they're a fun one. Yeah,
So I bought a BRZ in 2016, I think it was, and had that for a few years. I never actually took it autocrossing, not even once. I intended to. I bought it for the purpose, but I don't remember ever taking it. I did a full suspension, full coilover suspension on it. Never modified the engine. Um, I didn't. There wasn't really great options for that without going force induction.
yeah,
Um, but everybody says it's underpowered, but it is a nice little go-kart car.
yeah.
So
I haven't got. I've seen BRZs. I know a couple people that have them. I've never gotten to ride in one of those, but I've ridden in the Scion FRS, which is
it's the same thing.
basically the same thing.
Yeah, it'll feel exactly the same.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're the same chassis, same everything, same engine. Um, Suspension tuning difference between them, interior um, specifics difference between them, but otherwise it's the same. So then my son started getting bigger. He could fit in the back of that for a long time, and I decided to get rid of it, and that's when I bought my current STI, which is a 2019. Um,
nice.
so got it
So
not with the intent of going autocrossing, but I have taken it a couple of times.
I was going to ask if you've taken that one autocrossing yet.
Yeah. Yep, a couple of times. It was fun. It was nice to get out there again.
Yeah, my hometown. A couple years before I moved out here to the Midwest, but they built a road course there in my hometown, and they run everything from they they had they had rally set up there once. I went to see like the Daytona prototype cars there. I never got to see a kart racing, but they do like the AMA super bikes and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Um, but I know a couple people that have built cars and for the purpose of running out there, and they have a blast. I don't know how far you are, but I know there's some pretty big name tracks out there in
Oh yeah.
California. Have you got to drive on any of those?
I've ridden. I haven't. I've never got around to driving on a road course. I have ridden along. We have um, what is it? Well, we have Sonoma Raceway, which used to be Sears Point. And then we have Laguna Seca. Um, what do they call that now? There's something else. And
I don't
then
know.
the
Laguna Seca is what I've always known it as. I didn't know they changed the name of it.
I don't know either. The marketing and sponsorships change so much on these tracks, though.
Yeah.
Uh, there's one up north of here. I don't, for some reason, I'm drawing a blank. It's in Willows, California. That's right. I mean, it's within 40 minutes of my hometown. It's only a little over an hour north of here. Um, that's actually at that site is where they also have an autocross course, and that's where I took the STI running. But used to do drag racing in the Neon,
Yeah.
um,
I was
bracket
going to
racing
ask if
mostly.
NHRA was big out that way.
There's a track here locally, and the Sonoma Raceway, Sears Point has a drag track as well. I've ran on it um, here in Sacramento mostly though, and then we used to go out and to travel around to watch the races and see other cars run
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, I grew up at, you couple times a month at drag races. That my son's going to be a mechanic. That's what he wants to do for a career, and my goal is to build a drag car with him. I want to build the Ford Falcon XB, the black on black pursuit special from Mad Max as a drag car
Okay,
with him. That'll be the main project in Dad's garage at some point.
nice. Yeah, I ended up I think the best I ever did, I got like second for a Wednesday night drags bracket racing.
That's not bad.
So, not bad in a
There's a
manual
lot of people that
transmission.
spend a lifetime drag racing and never get there.
But yeah, the my current car, the STI, it does have things done to it. We just won't go into detail. I did all the work on it. I got fairly deep into the engine without doing internal work. So, but it's a lot of fun. But I hope
It
to not
is.
have it too much longer. It's time to move on. I've had it for 5 years now, over 5 years. It's a little time goes
What's
by.
the next toy on the list?
For cars, nothing. We have an old Nissan truck that's time to retire. So I think I'm gonna end up getting a pickup of some sort.
Okay.
The Maverick is probably right in the range of what I need. I need something with good gas mileage and can grab some boards from the home store. I don't need
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we don't get mini trucks because like an
I know.
S10 or a Ranger size, like the old Ranger
Mhm.
size pickup
The old
truck
Ranger, yeah.
is all I would need. I had a couple Rangers and a couple S10s, and man, I really miss those trucks.
And that's why the Maverick is so popular. Is it is what we used to have.
Yeah.
And so many people don't need these big giant trucks. And
Y-
everything's a big truck. My Nissan is old enough. It's a 2001, so it's right before. In 2004, they upsized all the small trucks,
Yeah.
and mine's still a small truck. But
Yeah, the little Toyota that they had too was fantastic. Well, I can't remember what that one was, but it was like the same size as the S10.
yeah, well, I mean the Tacoma was a small truck, and the until right around there, there was some. I'm sure there was some EPA or something that caused them all to get bigger. I don't. It's been explained to me, but I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, there's uh different allowances for different wheelbase sizes. So
Yeah, yeah, but yeah. So all of that, and then I've told this story before, but it's a good thing to repeat it here. I think is kind of getting into 3D printing at that point, right?
yeah. So
So
how'd you find your way there or here? Since
so I
you're
had a peripheral awareness of 3D printing for a long time. You see articles about it. It looks interesting. I've gone in and read an article here or there, and I I couldn't really explain why it never caught my attention. But I do remember seeing an article and seeing an example print posted there and thinking, what am I going to do with that blob of plastic?
yeah,
They didn't look great, and I think a bigger thing was the articles I was seeing on them were really focusing on little figurines and stuff, not necessarily the practical uses.
yeah,
Um, because if for me, just looking at a 3D printer and seeing figures and trinkets and stuff like that as the option to use it for isn't as interesting as realizing that I can model something and have a physical representation of that thing in a few hours.
yeah.
So I didn't get that until um, where I work, and this is known. I work for the Department of Water Resources and the California Department of Water Resources, and we're responsible. The organization, one of the main responsibilities is the operation and maintenance and construction and design of the State Water Project. And the State Water Project is the facilities and canals and stuff basically move water around California. And its northernmost point is Lake Oroville. And Lake Oroville has what is or was, I don't remember the the record or whatever, but the largest earth fill dam in the
Okay,
world. Um, and part of that structure and facility, there is a flood control spillway. So you have a large earthen dam that's between in a part of the valley, right? And then to the side of that is a concrete spillway structure, which is a big chute that they can let water down. They have gates at the top, and they can open and close them to control the level of the lake.
yeah.
And of course the dam has a power plant integrated into it, and they're generating power there and all that. So in 2017, the spillway failed.
Mm.
And it didn't fail. It some damage occurred. Some don't quote me. I'm wrong. I'm going to be wrong on the exact causes or whatever, and I'm not going to get into them. But the some cavitation and stuff pulled chunks of concrete blew out of it,
Okay,
and that created an area where it just kind of propagated more and more damage as water was let out. So they closed that. This ends up being a gigantic emergency on a huge scale. If you and large, this was part of they were spilling because the lake's almost full, or at a point where they can, and big storms are coming in that year.
that's
Um,
not good for anybody downstream.
no, so the particular division that I work for within the department is responsible for the design and construction of these facilities. So we were right there um, in at the beginning of that emergency, and as the manager over the IT support for the division of engineering, me and one of my staff members went up there on site and spent a significant amount of time. I think I was up there for 14 weeks straight, provided on-site support while the rest of my team provided support down here in Sacramento. So I was up there for a long time, and life-changing experience, the whole thing. But to keep this mostly on topic, one of the things I saw there was one of the contractors had printed a model of the damaged spillway. They took
Oh,
some photogrammetric images of the spillway and generated a 3D model of it and printed the a model of it, and they that got everybody. This is super cool We need more capability of this. And being the state and not being familiar with the technology, it ended up getting caught up in, is this actually safe to do? Can we do this indoors? What kind of plastics are there? Really, I think based on our experience with it, having a contractor doing that at the time was probably the best idea. But that gave me I think that planted the seed of the idea of 3D printing is pretty cool. So when I came back from that long deployment, and I had been able to come home a little bit, but it was almost continuous, 14 weeks up there. And and then even when the initial part of the emergency was done, since I managed support for the group that was up there, my involvement continued well past the emergency. So there's two phases to that. There's the emergency and then there's recovery. So once we transitioned into recovery, I continued being up there, and my staff were up there on a rotating basis for a long time. But once I had a chance to come back home and I was spending time at home, I had just stopped one hobby to go up there, and I wasn't going back to that hobby. Um, so I was looking for something else to do, and
What
3D
was your
printing, I
hobby at
started
that? What was your hobby at that point that you quit?
gaming. It was, yeah, computer games.
It's
So
it's definitely a popular hobby.
yes, and it can suck you in. So um, and I mean, I've talked about this as well. It was WoW. It was World of Warcraft. Um, and there's a whole big appeal to the community in there, even though much of it is toxic. But you get into a small group where you're having fun with, it was good. But it was also very time sinky. So um, it was the right time to step away from it, and that emergency was a good opportunity to do it. So I did. I haven't logged in since. Um, the But looking for something else, I started researching 3D printers and uh, looking at the Monoprice Mini and the there's a couple of Monoprices I was looking at, and then the CR10,
Okay.
and just watching videos and trying to figure out which one I wanted. And I ended up settling on the CR10. And this was in 2017. So June of 2017 is when I bought CR10. It was a Hicktop brand. It wasn't Creality, but I mean, I don't know if it's a subdivision of Creality or a brand of Creality or whatever, but it was a Hicktop CR10 with the older, um, just a single Z lead screw. They hadn't gone to dual there, and it had the older Meltzy controller board. So I still have the first test print off of that.
Do you?
It's
What
a
was it?
little, it's a little clover shaped like shot glass,
Oh,
and it's in the white PLA that it came with. It actually has a black part of the bottom because they had extruded black through it, and I printed that on top of masking tape, and
that's
like
awesome. Yeah.
lots of little prints from there.
So I know I first heard of 3D printing on the news, and
Hmm.
of this is going to be the future. You're not going to order products from Amazon. You're just going to, if you need a new spoon for your kitchen, you're just going to 3D. You're just going to download it, print it, and there you have it. And it was they were showing like the the ones with the um it lays down a film of material and then uses the laser to 3D print it. I can't remember what it's called right now.
Hmm.
But then the doing uh the lady did house cleaning, and one of the people that she did house cleaning for, their son was really into robotics and that kind of stuff, and he was building rep printers. Well, I didn't know what they were at the time, but they looked exactly like the Darwin that
Hmm.
Vector 3D made for Smurf.
Hmm.
And this was back in 2014, 2015, something like that. And then my son picked up a monoprice mini. Um, I guess that was in 2017 or something like that. But then I didn't get into it until he convinced me to buy the $99 Ender from Micro Center, and 3 weeks later, I'm building one of you
Hmm.
guys' machines.
Yeah.
So, but how'd you go from the CR10 to where you are now? I mean, at some point, um, that's a pretty big transition.
Yeah. So I had the CR10 and I started being able to think of things that I wanted to do. Um, I had done so other making things in more not but more modern years. I'd started incorporating SketchUp into my plans for for I'm making like risers for my washer and dryer at the house, or I built a garden shed, um, and using SketchUp to draw that stuff. Which, by the way, that garden shed was kind of my first. I remember my first thing that I'd built that I had some idea of. I should like blog this, but I never did. But the idea of doing something, and then having a post about it. Now, some of the car projects and stuff, I'd done build logs for different things that I'd made, but more of a general outside of a specific forum to have my own like blog of builds. But SketchUp was not the right tool for 3D printing though. And Fusion 360, and actually right at this time, 123 Design was just going away and Fusion 360 was coming in. But I had some little bits of opening it up and using some of the SketchUp perspective. Like if you're a SketchUp user and you open Fusion 360 and start trying to use it, is what I was modeling a few things that I wanted to do for the CR10. And I have a longtime friend from high school who is a mechanical engineer, and I had something I wanted to make. I think it was I had bought some SaneSmart TPU to print on the CR10, and the hole through the center of that spool was didn't fit well on the spool holder that came with the CR10. So I wanted to design a alternate spool holder, and he was over and we were talking about it, and he gave me some foundation, like here's a sketch, here's how you can draw, here's how you can apply sketches or constraints to it. Um, and you can do these other little features. I don't remember the specifics, but he kind of guided me through drawing this thing for to make a spool holder for it. And I basically just took that little kind of a shift in understanding of how you design in a parametric um, 3D modeling software, and just kind of evolved from there. So I have tons of little things I was drawing, little camera mounts, and I had this drafting pencil from college that I had stepped on one time and broke the housing. So I modeled and printed an alternate housing for it that the metal part screwed onto, and it was PLA, so it didn't last very long, but it did work.
Yeah.
Um, uh, so doing that and learning, kind of getting more and more enabled to tweak and modify the printer, and looking at what other folks have done, and that.
Yeah. So you most people that get a Ender or CR10 or that kind of printer, the first things they do is print the modifications that they find on YouTube videos and on Thingiverse or now printables. But sounds like you weren't printing the modifications you found. You dove into making the modifications.
Yeah. Um, One of the early problems I had with the CR10 was if you put it's easy to knock the external electronics enclosure over um, when a spool is on it because it's meant to be attached to there. And then, so I modeled some feet to go underneath that, and it basically offset the foot to the side of that the spool is on. So you change the center of gravity of the thing, and
I'll
the
have to get
support.
that from you. I got a CR10 sitting on the shelf that the only thing I've ever printed on it was a test print to verify that it was working after I
Yeah.
fixed it. Yeah, that was a little over 6 months ago. But I
I
noticed the same problem trying to just put a test spool on there. The entire electronics thing just would topple.
likes to. Yeah. A few months after I bought the CR10, the Prusa Mark III got announced. So they did pre-orders for that fall. That was fall of 2017, and I ended up pre-ordering that. Um, it was a bit of a stretch convincing my wife that I needed a second 3D printer. Um, but all the features on it, I was the magnetic bed and the textured sheet they were talking about, and all this stuff had me convinced that I needed one. So I ordered that and the MMU unit at the time, which I didn't actually get for about a year later. But that gave me the ability to print on one while the other one was really being modified.
Yeah, the old N+1. But kudos to your wife for letting you do it because, like I said earlier, like uh, you know, the makers in general, and whatnot, we tend to go down some rabbit holes, and it takes an extremely patient woman or a husband, depending,
Hmm.
to to put up with that and realize that kind of
Yeah,
comes along with it,
yeah. So that once I had that, it was all over. I started doing bigger modifications to the CR10. One of my goals was to get the electronics underneath it, and I did a. If you go out to Thingiverse and search for stuff that I've put out there, there's a pretty big CR10 conversion that I put out there. And then I started looking at. I met a friend at work that I heard was into 3D printing, and he and I started talking and came up with this plan to build hypercube evolutions together. So we order all the parts and try to save a little bit by doing that. This was early 2018 that we ordered all these parts, and I got into. Learned so much in Fusion remixing parts for that. So it was all the designer. I don't remember his name. Scott 3D was all into using heat set inserts, and we love heat set inserts now, right?
yeah,
But we're using the proper heat set inserts. His design was all using the injection molded versions,
yeah. I've
and
got some of them. They don't
n-
work real great.
no, and we didn't have. I've always been opposed. I'm not a fan of using a regular soldering iron tip to insert them either because it's
Yeah,
tapered. I didn't want to
yeah.
deal with that. So I went through a mission of completely redesigning the whole thing to use captured nuts instead of heat set inserts. So I did that, and I did a little more. This was kind of my early look into avoiding supports and definite distaste for supports in technical designs. So I did quite a few. There's a few parts of the Hypercube Evolution that required supports, and there was a couple of remixes that gave some ideas for avoiding that. And I started playing off of that, and definitely taking, I don't know where the idea originally came from, but taking inspiration from Prusa and the Greg, um, what's his last name? The Bear Project, the Prusa Bear Project.
Okay.
Greg, who leads that up, does a lot of really clever stuff and some really thought out things in 3D design, and learning and realizing why people were doing things and incorporating that into how I wanted to do stuff. But ended up going way down, modifying the Hypercube Evolution. Had a 3 lead screw Z setup going. Um, my friend who entered that with me built his and still uses it, but I never finished mine.
Yeah. I'm gonna be honest. I've not looked up or seen the Hypercube Evolution. I've heard you talk about it before, but I've never gone through and looked at one.
So there's a YouTube channel, Tech2C, TECH number 2 and then C. They came up with a design for the Hypercube, is what they called it. It's Core XY 2020 based um, 3D printer, and there's quite a few videos out there. The guy's really good. I'm sad that he doesn't do videos anymore, but seemed to be into drones, 3D printed drones, and a lot of the channel was centered around doing different materials and things for frames for drones and stuff. And the Hypercube Evolution is a take a remix of that for 3030 extrusions,
Okay.
and a little beefier, a little different setup. So it was appealing. I had no idea what Voron was at the time, although Voron was around. It just hadn't come up in my searches.
How'd you stumble on the Voron then?
Well, it did come up in my searches in the fall of 2019. So right around then, they were just introducing the 2.2, I think it was. They had just introduced it within a very short time, I think, of me discovering it. And I was looking at it, and I was in love with that. Those Z drives, the belted Z, and the
Yeah.
moving gantry, and on that one, on that previous design, you could see the Z pulleys plain as day in the front of this printer. They're a little hidden now,
Yeah.
and I was like, I got to build this. I have to build this, and I started planning it. And I used to go to I have even recently the SEMA show in Las Vegas, right? You've heard of
Yeah,
it?
you said about that, and I'm extremely jealous of that.
I've going since like 2000. I think I went every year for 15 plus years. Um, and I've probably gone probably, I don't know. I've only missed a handful in the last 20 plus years. And a little sidetrack, a little squirrel moment. Something I forgot to say is one of my earlier exposures to 3D printing was a company there doing basically cornstarch and sugar water based printing out of inkjet. So they were spraying a binding material onto a vat of powder
Okay.
and generating a 3D print. I still have it. It's a little engine block. Was their sample print they were giving out. Um,
And what were they doing with that? Like for practical purposes, if they're at
uh,
SEMA, I'm assuming that they're
rapid
doing
prototyping.
something. Okay.
Rapid prototyping. I mean, 3D printing is pretty common to see at SEMA, and especially now. You when Lulzbot's still around, you always saw Lulzbot. You see Race 3D, you see Ultimaker. Those are kind of the companies I've seen there in the past, along with some of the more obscure ones doing like acrylic resin printing, stuff like that. But um, that year, me and two friends were planning on going to SEMA and just attend and hang out. And both of them ended up having to cancel like oh, the morning of. One of them had to cancel, and I
Oh
found
man.
myself going solo. So I didn't have a whole lot to do, so I spent my evenings in the hotel scouring AliExpress and putting together my shopping cart for the for that Voron. And
Nice.
I ordered. It wasn't just looking for it. I was ordering stuff there. So ended up getting most of the stuff by like December, right before Christmas of that year, and started putting together and planning and getting some of the sub assemblies put together.
Yeah. So I mean, everybody, has their story on how they found the Voron Design Group. I was looking for a direct drive extruder for the um, Ender 3 that I had, got, and I was on my way down to Micro Center debating on buying that Sprite extruder, and I was just, looking that up and ended up having because the I managed I I bought the printer and went to put on a metal extruder thing on there and ended up destroying the stepper motor trying to get that uh gear off because it was a press set one and the
Hmm.
pulleys that I had from doing RC weren't strong enough to pull that off of there. Um,
Hmm.
so I ended up destroying that stepper motor, and I was like, well, what am I gonna do? But I ended up just buying another one, and then I sitting in the urgent care and looking up direct drive, like print your own direct drive stuff, and came across the afterburner for
Okay.
an Ender, and then it was like from Voron. So I typed in Voron into YouTube search. I can't remember whether it was your video that you did your Discord, like one of your first ones where you were on Discord um, doing the stream, or
Hmm.
if it was one of Nero's videos. But well, one of those two, and I was like, all right, this is pretty cool. So it was. I think that was a Friday. I think Monday I was ordering a uh, a kit.
So speaking of Afterburner, the when I found Voron, those Z drives. Well, let me rephrase that. I was really sad and against building a Bowden printer. I convinced myself that it would be fine because I love the Z drive setup on the 2.4, and because I really wanted a direct drive setup. And so I convinced myself that this is a Voron. I'm seeing all these great things being said about it. I'm going to build this anyway. And right after I got all my parts, that Christmas is when they announced Afterburner for the first time, and it was kind of a public beta, sort of.
Okay.
Um, it's kind of not really a public beta, but it was just like just released and still had a lot of um, stuff about it. So I shifted gears and from the Bowden setup and immediately went to that. Which one of the big changes for Afterburner was they went to the dual MGN9 setup. So I was
What was it before
building
that?
single MGN9 on the front of the rail.
Okay.
So on the X rail. So this is for the X, and the idea being that they were adding a bunch of weight to the tool head, and they wanted to make sure that it could be supported. So they put an additional 9 millimeter rail or MGN9 on the bottom side of the X extrusion. So I printed all the parts, got an extra rail, and actually I think I had bought an extra rail when I was sourcing my part to have a spare. So I was set there, and I was putting the sub assembly together and could not get those two rails aligned. It was not coming out smooth. Every time I'd tighten it down, it was grinding and rough, and I wasn't happy. So I set it aside for months. I didn't touch that printer for um, until 2.4 was released. Actually,
Really?
yeah. I kind of stayed on the Discord and peripherally paid attention to it, but I was working on other things. Um, didn't I mean there's a lot of time in my early 3D printing. I didn't do anything with 3D printing at all for
Yeah.
months at a time. I'd find other things to do or whatever. Um, but then 2.4 came out, and I decided to just immediately shift over to that. So I printed all my 2.4 stuff on on my CR10, which at this time was completely modified, and I had made this big pink foam enclosure for it so I could print ABS. And at a
I'm
certain
pretty sure I
point,
know exactly what pink foam you're talking about.
oh yeah, some of it is actually right there. You can
Yeah,
kind of see it.
yeah, that's
the
exactly the foam I'm thinking about.
Yeah, yeah. I had cut out and used tape, and I printed some custom brackets so it would sit down over the printer, and I printed parts on that until I had a problem with it, and then I shifted over to printing because I had two Mark IIIs at the time, um, and both of them I put a lac table over them and then draped them in towels. I didn't make an actual lac enclosure. I just put lac tables over it and draped them in towels and was printing parts. I printed everything in atomic black ABS carbon fiber and
You went all out for that.
Paramount Enzo red, which was the recommended um, Voron red color when I had first gotten into it in for 2.2.
Paramount makes some nice stuff. They got that British racing green. If you're
Yes. Are you thinking Paramount or KVP?
no Paramount, they got
Paramount
a
has the British Racing Green? Because
yeah,
KVP does too.
yeah. It says Sparta too. They've got theirs in a sparkle.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I was going to redo the 2.4 in their jet fighter blue. I really like
yeah.
that one. But I picked up that Polymaker metallic blue, and that's really nice. So I'm probably just going to redo it in that.
hmm The Prusas in those makeshift enclosures did loosen up over time. Over the course of printing all the 2.4 parts, they would get louder, and I'd go in there and find screws that I could tighten up. But it made it through, and I'm still using some of the parts are still on there that I printed from that. Uh, but got that
That
done.
that's the one you said you were rebuilding for Rocky Mountain.
Yeah, yeah, yep. But I um I printed all the parts, and that ended up being the build, the manual. That was the first project like that that I actually feel like I finished at the time. I never finished the Hypercube. I never really finished the CR10 mods I wanted to do, but I got this Voron all together, and that was really an important thing to be able to finish a build and have it um, really complete. I did a serial number video for it with panels, with a bottom panel on it. Um, there was a little contest that the Voron group was having at the time for there was a contest for existing serial number videos and then for new serial number videos, and I ended up winning the portion for the new serial um,
Do you have
folks.
that video?
Yeah, it's on my channel. It's the 2.4 serial.
You
It's one of the only um, few videos on my channel that aren't live
you
streams.
you want to pull it up and show us here?
Yeah, yeah, we can probably do that. I wonder if the sound will come across. There isn't really a
If not, I can pull it up so we can get the sound.
Well, I guess if you can hear it, it should be out there, right? It should come through.
Yeah, you should be able to uh, share your screen. I think it.
Yeah. So I've got this. So this is it, my Voron 2.4 serial request. It says 3 years ago, but this is. Can you hear the sound?
No.
Uh, yeah,
Let
it's not.
let
It's not
let
coming
me
through. Then
jump over to your YouTube here real quick.
give you a give you a link in the, or actually, it's going to show up on the main page.
On the main page. Yep, Voron 2.4 serial request.
Yeah.
All right, let me.
Now, dual controller setup. See, bottom panel.
The print looks pretty impressive.
Yeah, not bad for a first print, huh? No
No,
prior
not bad at all.
Core XY or or real any other experience. Of course, had to do peel. I mean,
It's
can't peel
obligatory.
until it prints. Can't peel until it prints. That's the rules. So there's quite a bit of modification I did on that printer, even because it's not a standard build size. It's a 320 millimeter spec frame, which
Is
is a terrible idea.
isn't that what Nero's first one was too?
Just by coincidence. Just by coincidence. Um, his is that way because it was an upgraded previous model.
Yeah.
Mine is that way because I had a CR10 and I wanted to retain the 310 millimeter build plate and then a little extra just in case I wanted more room for like um, a nozzle brush or something.
Okay.
So without being aware of the drawbacks or needs, I settled on a 320 millimeter, which means I modified every one of the skirt files because to make everything line up. And what else did I do? The skirt files was a big modification, though. I learned a lot um, about that
Yeah, I think
because
that's why Nero's doesn't have skirts on it.
yeah, and I've sent him my skirts, the files. It's not important. Um, but yeah, the little zip tie anchors, the rear power inlet, the filtered power inlet for that version didn't have the keystone jack. I think was the thing. The
Okay.
the the regular IEC inlet did, or something like that. But I modified it to something about it to fit. Um, and then
Well,
I
Keystone
modified
Jacks are on the opposite side now, aren't they?
They're on the sides. Yeah. The and then the afterburner, because I had a Prusa MMU2, it
Uh huh.
uses a large heat set, a large M5 heat set, for to easily remove the Bowden tube. And I modified the afterburner tool head to press one of those in so I could do the same thing
Okay.
on this. So, and that required the little lever, the filament lever, to be modified, as well as the
Yeah, it'll
front
be.
part of the thing. So, but yeah, the different thing about this video early on is that, at least people commented on, is that it showed the whole printer. It wasn't just someone filming maybe an overall shot and then it printing. It was, I took the time to kind of do a walk around the printer and underneath, and as well as the printer, the printing itself.
Yeah, they're always my favorite serial request videos. I go back and watch a couple of them from time to time on Reddit. Uh, they're always my favorite. Max makes great
Hmm.
printer videos. Jesus.
Yes. Yeah. When I was doing serial numbers processing for a while there, it was cool seeing some of the more interesting ones. And still, the with Sanity, when she's doing the when she sees one that's extra special or whatever, she'll post it in our group and be able to check it out.
Yeah, so
So
some
many
people do.
clever, so many
Yeah,
clever videos now.
yeah. So some people do some really cool videos.
Yeah. But yeah, they announced this, they announced 1.8, and they announced the Voron Zero. And funny enough, I wasn't interested in building the 1.8 because I had just done all that work on the Hypercube. Um, I was most interested in what was different to me, and that's and honestly, having gone through doing work on the Hypercube for a Triple Z, um, if the 1.8 had had Triple Z, I probably would have been a lot more interested in it. And I know that's what Eddie's intent was, to have that, but it didn't fall in.
Yeah.
There's some design obstacles, or some design requirement obstacles that didn't get overcome in time. So I was
Yeah.
super interested in building a V0 though.
Yeah, the V0 was so I built the 2.4 R4. That was my first one.
Hmm.
And I bounced back and forth between building it and building the Trident. Um, and then they said the 2.4 was harder to build than the Trident, so that kind of solved that problem for me. So I'm going to build the harder one.
Hmm.
Um, but the V0 was pretty cool. That was the one my son wanted me to build first. But I'm like, I don't need a real
Hmm.
tiny printer right now. So, um, that's that's how I ended up with it. So Eddie was the one. Eddie the I'm assuming you mean Eddie the engineer.
Eddie the engineer. Hmm.
So he was the one that did the 1.8 then.
Yeah. So this was prior to my time as part of the Voron Design Team. But Max RCF had gone in and was working on have dedicated to working on 2.4, and Eddie wanted to continue work on Voron 1, and was given the blessing to work on it, and what came out of that was 1.8. um, so moving over to linear rails for X and Y motion, but keeping the rods for Z. One of the design constraints was for it to be symmetric. So you couldn't put two rods or on one side and one rod on the other.
Yeah.
So that wasn't going to be allowed. So all the things that had to change about it, like the gantry is basically upside down on 1.8 versus 2.4. Uh, all the stuff is on top of the extrusions instead of below it. And it ended up, I mean, it's a great printer. A lot of people had a lot of success with it, but that series of printers has never been as alluring as the V2.
Yeah, people love the flying gantry,
Yep.
but uh, I mean, it's cool and it's cool to watch. But I mean, essentially, an Ender gantry goes up and down too. When you really stop to think about it. But I didn't
Yep.
really stop to think about that until quite some time later either. But now now I've got the whole set.
You have the full,
Well,
all
I've
of
got
them.
I've got the four mainline ones: the
Okay.
Trident, the
Uh-huh.
V0 2.4, and the switch wire.
Yeah.
You guys are getting ready to destroy that for me, though.
So I ended up just through various work interactions and helping and stuff. I ended up joining the team about a month and a half, a couple months later, um, and then getting into helping on projects like Switchwire and Legacy and helping revisions and stuff for the V0 and some of the early right after I got in, like the modified Z motor mounts on the 2.4. Um, that changed the print orientation was my was me. Right after I got in, there was this report that these were all breaking, and I said, "Well, we can do this." And I modeled something up and threw it out there, and they went with it and ran with it, which was cool. Um, the then what was that? So that was 2020, and then I think it was the end of the year 2021 when I approached Eddie and said, "Hey, what are your plans for 1.9? And I want to help." And we started throwing some ideas back and forth and um, trying different things. And I'd modeled up a few things and different ideas for because really the from the very beginning the goal was three lead screw Z bed trimming and tried the idea that I had for my hypercube, which is basically a floating rear lead screw not attached to a linear rail, um, and relying on the linear rails for at the front 2 points, which would have allowed us to keep the backpack at the time. Maybe that was the goal, was to keep the electronics in the back. And it was an interesting evolution of going through and realizing certain things would work and then I had the idea of why don't we put a center extrusion in the back so we can and then the question on the for the other design folks if it would be acceptable to attach it at the bottom with a blind joint but at the top with a printed part, and everybody seemed okay with that, so that's where we ended up. And then realizing at some point that we could use just the whole 2.4 gantry now because we don't have to avoid those rods, and everything just kind of fell in place from there. And at a certain point I'd done enough work on it and Eddie was working on other stuff that he said, you know what, you're doing a good job on this, why don't you just take it over.
Yeah.
And so we
So
worked for the next 9 months or what 8 months of just working on it was feature complete, it was printable by the time in April of that of 22 when V0.1 came out. It wouldn't have been realistic, but it feasibly could have been released when 0.1 was. But we didn't and took the correct time, the right choice, took the time to get a manual together and all the BOM and everything sorted out and released it that next August.
so the Trident came out in August of 23.
22.
Oh, August of 22. Okay.
All right, yeah, it's got to be 22. Yeah, because I started streaming right after that because my first stream, not first stream, but the first um, real stream was the end of August, starting the Trident build.
Yeah.
I wanted to show it on the build process, and that just kind of snowballed into where we are now.
Yeah, that was the first of your videos that I saw was that first Trident build stream.
Yeah, building the orange 250 build.
Yeah, it
So
it may have inspired me. I don't know. I spent a long time trying to track down an orange frame until Jason helped
the
me out with that. But
but
it's
yeah,
definitely been inspired, and that's something I wanted to ask you about. So,
hmm,
um, you know, I anytime you make something and you put it out there in the world, and it it's a source of great pride to see one of your creations being used by other people and stuff like that. But at the same time, dealing with the inevitable negativity from some people and the complaining and the you know
yeah.
whatnot from different people, and especially when it's coming from people that couldn't do what you did if their life depended on it. You know, that's got to be extremely frustrating as well. As at the same time that you know, yeah, so much joy from sharing something that you made. Like how do you guys, you, the rest of the team, how do you guys deal with that?
So there's always going to be folks that don't agree with a design decision or something, some direction you go. What really comes back to it for me, um, is you got to figure that they don't understand the the goal when you're releasing a printer or a design or anything. You have some sort of goal in mind that you started with, right? Or a set of criteria that something has to meet. So if we're talking Voron design projects, at the very basic, you've got off the shelf parts, right? You can't have something that requires a custom machining. Now, I understand that this printer here breaks that, but
Yeah,
talking about our main releases, you have these worldwide availability, supportable. You can get the parts. You can build this thing in just about any um, garage. You don't need special tools. You don't need this or that. When when you understand that much of that criticism is either just because people like to do that, or they don't understand what the goals were. You can't really let it get to you.
yeah,
And but at the be even in even beyond that, it doesn't happen very often, really. um I can't really think of, as far as my own stuff, there's always, I mean, there's areas where I've been frustrated and noticed someone say something about something, but I couldn't tell you exact instances.
yeah.
So
It's going to help too a little bit that it's an open source project, so you can, without sounding like a complete asshole, go, well, if you think you can do it better, do it yourself.
yeah,
Uh, because
and there's whole huge mod communities around that.
yeah, my one earbud's about to die.
Yeah, these headphones have tons of battery life. A little
Uh,
easier.
I've got uh, I've got other headphones that have better battery life, but they're paired to other things. So
Yeah.
I just know that it's not going to get me through long, so I just use one at a time.
Yep. That's what I do with my AirPods when I'll probably be using AirPods tomorrow. So I hope it works out.
Yeah.
Um yeah, I mean, we have a good community in general. There's always little bits of drama. You get the how many days has it been since the 3D printing drama thing, but as far as that, there's, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't dwell. I don't. I really don't. I try not to let my thoughts be down there in the worrying about what people don't think about something.
yeah.
Um,
I
at least
find
not for extended periods of time.
most of the criticism does not come from within the community. Like, uh, you know, the thousands of people on Discord and stuff like that. I
Hmm.
rarely ever see it from that. It's normally from people coming into it for the first time. Um,
Yeah.
and I just don't give any credence to somebody that hasn't taken the time to build one themselves, criticizing something they don't have. So, but it always seems to be the people that are coming into it for the first time.
Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, I mean the community's great. The people that are in it are fantastic.
Yes. And then starting to go to events and meeting folks in person, and that just adds a whole other layer
Yeah,
beyond just interacting on Discord or interacting in a live stream or whatever.
yeah, yeah. I look forward to hopefully this year I can make a uh, Midwest Rep Festival
Okay.
because I keep the weekend that because I'm right near Midwest Rep Festival. It's like
Mhm.
a little over 2 hour drive from me. But every time that's going on, I'm all the way over by in South Jersey, right next to the East Coast where East Coast Rep Fest is held. And then I'm back there the weekend the East Coast Rep Festival is going on, but I don't have vacation time to take to
Yeah.
go down there for a day to so because my
Yeah.
son still lives in Jersey, so I got to go back and forth to pick him up, and
Hmm.
it always works out. This year I was like, okay, either you're coming early or you're coming later because I'm going. So if you want
Yeah.
to come, you know, I'll come pick you up the weekend before, but
Yeah.
I'm going there this year. So
Murph, I'm hoping to make. There's a cluster of events this year in June and in September, October.
yeah,
So it'll be like 3 weekends in a row in June that have something going on that I want to attend.
yeah,
So
yeah. I
we'll see
heard
how it
there's quite a
goes.
few, but in any case, I mean, it, you know, even if you're not there, it'd be great to meet some of the other folks that
Oh
spend a
yeah,
lot of time talking to.
yeah, yep.
Um,
It's a good time for sure.
uh, I I think it's a shame that it seems to have fallen out of favor very quickly amongst the community with Rocky Mountain, and I hope they can either do something to increase their popularity again or something. I don't know.
It's I
It
mean it's
it
really
seems
up
a shame.
up to them. It's I think they run it the way they want to, which is fine. It's a more laid back show. It's not structured. It's not there's not a lot of um I mean I just shouldn't say it's not structured, but it's definitely more laid back than some of the other shows.
Yeah.
So
Well, like I said, it's 2 hours for me. I want to see succeed.
yeah. Would this be the first one you've gone to? You haven't been to one
Yeah,
yet?
yeah. I have
Yeah.
not been to one yet. So
Yeah. Last or 2022 was the first ones I'd been to. Was it 20? So was it 2021 is when Trident was released? That's right. I had my dates wrong before. It's August of 2021.
okay.
So
Yeah, a lot of stuff seemed to come out around that time. Everybody locked up at home, plenty of time to do some
yeah,
CAD work and
because
build
it's
some
been two
printers.
and a half years since I started streaming, so it had to have been 2021.
So, speaking of streaming, um,
Hmm.
you obviously found yourself falling into that, and you had said that you had considered, doing some sort of build series blog or something with the shed you were building.
Hmm.
Um, what pushed you into? you know, becoming a content creator on top of it.
Um, well, I wasn't planning on becoming a content creator even when I started that. The back when I was doing the shed or whatever, a blog is easy. I mean,
Yeah.
even though I'm terrible at writing, writing down just like a sequence of what I'm doing. I did some custom dashboard for my Neon years ago, and posting the build progress pictures and description of it was easy. And I figured I'd do something like that, just not attached to another group. um, when we got into the idea of streaming was I did a like a Discord show building a V0 that August, I think it was right before, not August. It was like July, June or July. I did that in Discord. It was like a 10-hour marathon build a V0, and it was one of the LDO kits. Um, did that, had it went pretty well, and then Trident was going to come out, and I just wanted to build a. I mean, if you were back, if someone was back there watching at the time, my channel was still my name. I hadn't changed my channel name. I had no ideas or plans on going really any further. But I did the Trident series, and I think I rolled into working on the Legacy, and then into a Switchwire build, and then uh,
It,
over that basically September, because it was like August 28th or 29th that I did the first one. Kind of over the next couple of months, realizing, okay, well, I can keep doing this. I got stuff I can work on, and then starting to look at, okay, well, I need to fix my setup. I need other cameras, and then ended up getting this camera, which is a Sony A6400, over like thanks Thanksgiving, right after Thanksgiving. I put that into place, and I got this overhead camera from someone,
yeah, cameras are
and it just
expensive.
kept.
I looked at them, but number one, I don't even know what I don't know enough about cameras to know what I'm even looking at or what I should be looking at. So I got two little
Yeah,
Logitech
same here.
webcams. Um, and, and two, I look at them and I go, all right, well, for the cost of a used one of these cameras, I could build another printer. So I still
the
got two
the
little
only
Logitech.
reason I bought this 6400 is my wife's into photography, and her DSLR was not working, and so we justified it by we'd have a shared camera. She could use it to take photos, and I would use it for streaming. And because I wasn't even then, I wasn't thinking this was going to go anywhere at all, even as far as it has. And so that was the only way to justify buying that. Um, and then since I've bought another um, Sony camera, that's the one that's pointing at me right now. So I have the three main cameras, and I just have a Logitech webcam that I'm using for a close-up shot.
Yeah.
But I got that, and I got the lav mic. Just trying to um, get a basic streaming setup going, and it just kind of evolved over the next few months. And as I hit those bigger like Stealth Burner um, release and stuff like that, that drew in a large number of new subscribers and had a lot of growth in those first few months.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I could definitely see that happening because even quite a ways out from Stealth Burner, one of my biggest videos on my channel is putting a Stealth Burner on an Ender 3. That thing
Hmm.
still gets like 100 views a day. Somebody
Yeah,
watching that. And like I
yeah.
said, the ERCF, you know, walking through some of these big things that draw people's attention even from outside of the Voron community and definitely build that audience quite quickly.
Speaking of community, I mean, that's the whole reason that my channel went where it is I definitely feel like I rode the Voron popularity wave. going into it, and having access to Stealth Burner early and being able to do a video early on it. But it wouldn't be here now. I wouldn't still be doing it if we hadn't built up the community um, that's here, the regular viewers, the people that are interacting, and um, that's how this keeps going
Yeah.
is the people.
Yeah. You've got a a great group in your Discord and in your live streams, and they're just a legitimate good group of people that are nice to everybody that comes in, and
Mhm.
it's a rarity in the world of the internet these days.
Yeah, I'm very, very happy with it. It's taken no effort on my part to do. It's it's the community that's basically done it, and they've chosen my streams to do it in. Not only my streams, but I know I've been part of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, it's a bunch of fun. It's,
So what next? Uh, I know you got the Phoenix there, and
hmm
um, I think you guys are planning on releasing that at Rocky Mountain, which by the time this comes out, that'll be the same time frame. But
yeah. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but I'm also not gonna put any hopes up. I wouldn't
yeah,
expect to release it Rocky Mountain, and by the time this comes out, you'll realize that there wasn't a release at Rocky Mountain. So if that was
well,
a dash to some hopes, I apologize. But the one of the things that's about a project like this, it's not a company. Nobody's getting paid to do it. We don't get any kickbacks per kit that's being sold. There's none of that out there. So everything is based on the schedules and stuff of volunteers. So
yeah,
we get really excited to get something out there and get a design out into the world. But the realities end up being that we run into something. Maybe a couple of design changes need to happen that delay it, or we have fewer other people that can commit the time to doing the testing and building. And so although we are working towards a release and it will happen, it ends up having to happen on its own schedule. Otherwise, you put a bunch of pressure on people when it's not their job.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, even you know the time invested into designing and building the thing, but it's also a financial investment on you guys'
Yeah,
part, and beta testers like you know Smurf. The price tag on that was what, a little over 5 grand. Like, you know, that's a lot of money for people to shell out to build something to test something.
yeah.
And when you're doing beta testing, it is multiples of what it's
hmm
going to end up costing when it's all said and done, because you're buying, oh, this part didn't work, I got to buy another different part.
Yeah.
That stuff is difficult. So
Fortunately, I mean, we don't get kickbacks for anything, but when there is dev going on, if we reach out to a manufacturer or whatever, there's the ability to get some test parts. I mean, they want to see the
yeah,
next big project, right?
you guys make,
So,
without you guys' work, they don't have anything to sell. So
and stepping off of that, the community in general, there's this interesting um, thing with all these community designs and companies like LDO and Mellow, and I'm going to leave out companies because I'm not off the top of my head naming them, but they're latching onto that and making or Cybor and Formbot and all that. They're they're making some of these projects more widely available.
yeah,
And you asked me a second ago, what's next? And kind of talking about Voron a little bit, but what's next for me is continuing to be interested in those community projects and not just building or working in the Voron world, but kind of seeing what other folks are doing. And that's been a lot of fun. I mean, the case in point, yeah, I'm terrible at this. This Milo,
Yeah.
building a Milo, and seeing another group's design philosophy and how they're managing, um, working towards a release and getting a design out there to the world. And we've
Yeah,
done it with the
you've done that with
Easy
quite a few
Bot
things.
and
Yeah.
yeah, Easy Bot and the Rook and the Mercury One, and um, I want to continue doing that. So
Yeah, and even, you know, design stuff outside, like today's uh members only stream building, you know,
yeah,
the Datsun RC car, and yeah, I think it's so sweet.
I'm so happy with it. I've been sitting
And
here playing with the suspension. You can't see it, but I've been compressing the front suspension.
the Nerf blasters, and
Hmm.
you know, you build that stuff on stream and it's fun to watch, but it also brings some attention and, business to these other
Yeah,
folks that you know I
yep,
would have not been exposed to it, and I'm sure other people would not have been exposed to some of the stuff if it wasn't for, you know, the
right,
content that you and others created.
yep.
Um, we build all these, we build these printers, and then at some point we want to build something else with them other than just another printer. So it's
The
really fun to watch this.
yeah, that's kind of funny talking about that. We're building tools that are intended to build other things.
Yeah,
But one of those other things, by the nature of the project, is more of the tools.
yeah,
Even
yeah.
when I'm doing woodworking and stuff, most of what I build are things to support other things. Like this, I mean, this table.
Mhm.
The I build table saw sleds. That kind of stuff is fun to build. And then I end up like the table saw sled I use quite a bit for other projects. But some of it doesn't even get used again.
Yeah, yeah. I've really wanted to start expanding the capabilities of what I have here. Supposed to be getting a welder from a guy, and I just haven't gotten around to getting it from him. But
Yeah.
um, part of that is the fact that that welder's a little bit underpowered for what I'll eventually need. I have this bad tendency of going, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right, and I'm not going to do it halfway.
Mm-hmm.
This I've I've found that if I do it halfway to start, I just end up spending more money because I'm going to do it 100% at the end anyway. So,
Yeah.
um, but I kept trying to buy a Bridgeport because I kept finding really good deals on them, and they just
Mm-hmm.
kept not lining up. Like one of them I found on a Wednesday, and I didn't get paid till Friday, and by Friday it was gone. But
Yeah.
like the full size Bridgeport for $400, the guy just needed it out of his garage because he was moving.
Yeah.
Like,
What size is your shop there?
uh, so it is like 20 by, it's a 1.5 car garage. I measured
Okay.
it at one point. Like my bench top here is like 12 feet or something like that. So it's another 4 feet on both sides. So about 20 feet by probably 35 or something like that.
That's a 1.5 car garage.
Yeah, or something like that. But it
This
it's
is
not,
this is a 2 car garage and it's 20 by 20. That's what they call it anyway.
well, on the listing for this thing it called it a 2 car garage, but it's a, you could fit 2 cars in here side by side because it's the same width as my driveway, and I can fit two
Uh-huh.
cars in my driveway,
Yeah.
side by side. So, but not with the door that they have on here.
Yeah.
Uh, so I don't know. It the car got pushed out of it. last winter. The,
Mm-hmm.
the kids play out here, and I work out here, and
Yeah.
so I
I
keep
used
I keep the floor space open, and that way, if I need to work on something, I can pull it in here. But there's rarely ever a car in here.
I used to park the STI in here. It doesn't fit anymore.
Yeah, the cars get pushed out of your garage for many reasons. At least it's not because my garage is piled with, you know, crap.
Mhm.
So
Fortunately, my wife doesn't like to park in the garage, so
mine did. So she's less
she's
than
o-
thrilled.
she's okay with it not being used by her.
So um yeah, but that's what I meant when I was asking like what next is not necessarily for Voron design because
Hmm.
it, you know, that stuff kind of stays under wraps until it's not. Uh,
Hmm.
and we all get that. And I'm sure after the Phoenix there behind you and the everything that's going on surrounding that and people putting pressure on when's it coming. Probably
Hmm.
the next one probably won't be mentioned until it's like, hey, we designed this and you can go download it today. Um,
Well, it goes back and forth. This one really got pushed for Smurf because we
yeah.
auctioned off the one there. So
Um, but I meant more for you personally. I know you know you got lots of projects that you're building on stream, but I'm sure you got other things that you want to do that you're interested in.
yeah, and really, I mean, I'm kind of doing what I'm interested in, building the projects. Um, I think next what I want to do over the next year or so is get caught up on the some of the smaller projects that have stacked up. That's why I'm doing the Tuesday streams now.
Yeah,
Is getting some of those other bits caught up. I really want to get to a point where I'm feeling like I have time to play with things like the CNC mill um, and such. I want to um, get the space organized. I'm going to spend a lot of time organizing space, especially like filament storage, and I'd like to get my streaming back into the other garage, which will mean building a simple workbench over there and setting up the cameras in a way that I like. Um, and getting the storage shed was a big part towards all of that because it gets some of the things that have been keeping me from organizing in here out of the way.
yeah.
Um, I want to the last thing that I really need for making capability is a laser. So I'm going to be looking towards a CO2 laser of some sort.
They're pretty cool. Uh,
Yeah.
I've seen a couple of them. And the the CO2 is kind of the diode lasers are all right, but the CO2 lasers are
Yeah. I need to be able to
they're the
cut
cool ones.
acrylic. I need to be able to cut clear items. I need to be able to do it more safely,
Yeah,
in a more controlled um, way. I mean, you mentioned the Bridgeport. I would absolutely love to have a small manual mill, something along the lines of like what Blondie Hacks or whatever or those folks use. Um, because I mean, it's really cool to be able to do a program and run a CNC mill. But for some of those operations that you see, um, don't require that kind of thing. You want to drill a hole down in a rod. You don't set up a CNC program to do that. You
yeah.
go and you might chuck that in and grind a little flat on the side and then center point drill it and drill a hole.
What about a lathe?
I
Uh,
have I have a one of those little 7-inch mini lathes. And it's the same problem as any of those type of things. You get it, and then you need to spend all the time, actually dialing it in and modifying it to where it works well. I don't have the space for a big lathe.
Yeah.
I think that 7 inch would actually do the majority of what I need, which would be maybe doing a modification to a screw or turning something on a piece of rod stock
Yeah.
that I might need. I know that if you look at it and you had a choice between a lathe and a mill, um, uh, the you buy a lathe because you can do with the right setup and right tooling, you can do a lot of what you can do on a mill on a lathe, but you can't
Yeah.
do much of what you can do on a lathe on a mill.
Yeah. Yeah. I learned to turn stuff on a lathe on a pretty big one. It would accept I think it was up to like 30 inches or something like that.
Ooh,
You do whole
wow.
table legs on it. Um,
Yeah.
but that that that's out of my price range or my ability to put it in
Yeah.
here. Or, that was a big three phase
Yeah.
460 or 480 volt lathe. Um, and they're not gonna run 460 or 480 volt to my neighborhood. So that would be a
Yeah.
generator situation. And
You you can run those off of VFD of some sort, can't you? Isn't that what
um,
inheritance machining does?
I'm not sure.
Runs a big-
I haven't really looked too much into it to be honest with you,
I
because like I
haven't either.
said, it's out of my price range for, and even if it wasn't to justify that to the old lady, would be nigh on impossible.
Yeah. But yeah, getting stuff organized is really what needs to be next for me. And that's a never ending thing. I'll never actually be organized. I understand that. But getting to a point where um, I'm not worried as much about organization in between builds or in prep.
It's also
Fortunately,
hard to get organized when you're constantly adding new equipment to your
yeah,
situation. I mean, every couple months you've built something new to add
yeah.
to it.
It's not sustainable. I don't know what I'm gonna do next. It really isn't. And it's so hard because almost every single machine I have is a custom build. The
Yeah,
Shapeoko is I bought that because I wanted it as a tool and I got rid of my MPCNC because I didn't want a project. Now it turned into a project, but that was mostly the table to put it on that was the project. Now it's a tool that I just need to set up and use, and I've used it. I cut a lot of the panels for the Phoenix here on it, but the rest of it, everything is a custom project, makes it really hard for me to get rid of.
yeah.
So the
I remember when you got the Shapeoko and you were doing that first stream, and one of the things I asked you was like, okay, what's the secret project that we need this Shapeoko for?
and that's not actually what the was on the list for that, because at the time, I don't think I knew that V24 was being revised, but I didn't know we were going to release it as a design.
Yeah,
So it really was just so I could do panels and stuff, and having some aluminum capability on it. And although I haven't used it, I've done the panel stuff. And
yeah,
I have a big outside of 3D printing project that I need to get done on it. That's been on the back of my list for far too long. So I need to make a
yeah.
tavern sign. I need to make a tavern sign for someone.
Oh,
So
that'd be cool.
yeah, I've got the design. It's all designed. I just need to get the get the test cuts, get the cam set up for it, and then once it works, I bought some nice wood to do it on. Hopefully that works out, and then I can be done.
That would be an awesome project. I wanted to get a laser because um, just the engravings that you've done on like some of the deck panels and
hmm
stuff like that is pretty cool. And I think it would work pretty good on ACM panels. And I've got about a sheet and a half of ACM.
hmm
um, like about a 4x8 sheet, one and a half of those, and
Yeah.
my worktop is actually a half of an ACM panel on top of this
Oh,
that
okay.
I work on top of.
Hmm.
I think that would be pretty cool to laser etch down because then you'd have silver through the black.
Yes. Yep.
But
As long as it burns away cleanly. You'd have to do
yeah,
some tests.
yeah, I got enough to do some tests and then make some
Hmm.
panels. But first, I got to get a laser. So um, yeah, I know. It's on the to do list.
Right.
There's always a long one of those for all of us, I think.
Never ending.
Yeah.
Never ending.
And just when you think it's done, like I got through Christmas, uh, built the Trident. I was like, all right, I think I'm done. And then the V0, and then I'm like, all right, I'm done. And then I'm like, all right, well, I guess we're building the Enraged Rabbit carrot feeder. And I'm like, all right, I guess we're building the tap changer. And
Are you turning your 2.4 into the tap changer?
I am, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, we'll see how it performs, whether it stays that way.
Hmm.
But I've also got uh, I need a bed and lead screws and stuff to build the Tridex
Hmm.
and tap changer. I had everything here, so um, to get it most of the way um, with minimal investment. So it's like it was the reason why I have half the parts for a Tridex is same reason. You know, the Trident I got. You know, all the stuff that I wanted for it, and then those last few things, it was
Hmm.
cheaper to buy an entire like Formbot kit than it was just to buy the bed, the lead screws, and the couple of last things that I needed. So I bought
Yeah.
an entire kit, and now I have all the parts again that I had when I started out. Like, all
Yep.
right, well,
Yep.
so at some point I'm gonna have to just find good deals on just the parts I need to finish one printer. That way I can stop having to buy and build another one because I got half the parts to build it.
I don't even want to go count how many little project boxes I have of things that are coming, things I could do.
Yeah.
That's the one goal, is to reduce those project boxes.
Yeah, but like, by the time you get rid of 10 of them, you've added 11.
This is true. This is true.
We wouldn't know what to do with ourselves without projects.
No, no, I
That's,
can't imagine.
uh,
Always
it's,
something.
that's the most depressed that I get is when I don't have anything to come tinker with.
Hmm? You find something.
Yeah, and it normally ends up costing you way more money when you're bored.
Yes. Yes.
Um, but so I did mean to ask you, and uh, we've talked about this a little bit on your Discord, but you on your old streams you had some team associated stuff up on your wall,
Hmm.
and you like said you just finished building that RC, and we talked about um you doing the cars and stuff. When did the RC stuff come in?
Oh boy. Um, when did the RC stuff come in general?
Yeah,
Well, RC has always been, since I was a kid, a lot of fun. Hobby level, like real RC stuff, we never really could afford when I was a kid. So when I was in late high school, right after high school, and I started earning my own money, I had bought a RC10 T2, which is an old RC10 truck. And really, it's the same thing. I built it, played with it a little bit, and then moved on. It was all about building it. My dad was into airplanes and old control line airplanes, if you've ever seen those. I never really got
No.
into flying those either. So it's control line is you literally have a control strings that go out to the plane and you tilt your hand. There's two strings, tilt your hand to control the aileron on the plane. You spin around in circles. And it's got a
Okay. Okay.
little
I
gas
I have
motor, and
I have seen them then.
you run it until you're either too dizzy and fall over, or it runs out of gas. Um, the So anyway, my friends and family had always been into RC stuff. I had family members who had a track early on, and just home track type stuff. Um, but the interest in the 10th scale, really, it's always been like 10th scale buggy and that kind of stuff. I never really got into bashing um, monster trucks or anything like that. It was always I wanted that nimble, um, tuned suspension, racing experience. And I went to the track a couple of times. We went for practice days quite a bit, and I did a race day once or twice. Um, but really, it was still all about tuning it and building the different things and doing the different options. And so most of what I have um, are team associated. But I did buy the Low C22B when it first came out. Um, and I built my cousin had an RC TC4, which is Team Associated's touring car series,
Yeah.
and he had that, and I got it from him quite a few years later and turned it into a vintage TA car, which is um, it looks like a Barracuda is the one
Yeah.
what I modeled it, and I think it's the green one. I think I've shown it on stream a couple of times, but it's a very spec class, and I raced that at a road uh, place once, but
Just
it really
oval
all
or
no,
oval or
it's
street?
road course, little on street on asphalt um, road course. So it was fun.
Yeah,
But
there there's things that the little touring car class, they zip, man.
hmm
And they're
Fortunately,
easy to set up in a parking lot. They're fantastic.
I always felt that the touring cars are the real ones, the not the real ones, but the fast RC ones were just too much for me. So that's where the appeal of the vintage TA spec class was, because they don't run that fast. You can actually
Yeah.
see them and plan the next corner.
Yeah, I almost got into A scale touring car, and that situation fell apart. But um, other than that, I did 12 scale uh, pan car stuff, and then
Yeah.
some A scale nitro buggy. I spent way more money than is decent to spend uh,
Mhm.
taking a HPI Savage and turning that thing into. I raced it in the truggy class and annihilated people in the truggy class with an MT. And I wrote up a whole thing on suspension and differentials and balancing that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
and posted it on what was the HPI Savage forum at the time, and then it got picked up by a couple other RC sites
Mhm.
forums at the time and reposted. It's probably still out there somewhere, but it was like a 20-page report
Yeah.
breaking everything down.
Nice.
That was a it was a lot of fun. Do you still? I mean, outside of just tinkering with the ones that you've built, because you built a buggy too, didn't you? On
Did 3D sets is it's another 3D sets model. They call it the Sandy. It's like
okay,
a inspired by the Marks Manx buggies,
yeah,
and we did that on over a few Charlie's Angels streams um, last year. Yeah, it was earlier. It was. when did we do that? Because it couldn't have been that long. We haven't even. Well, yeah, it's been about a year, I think, since we did that. Because we've been doing this for almost 2 years. Charlie's Angels stuff.
Yeah.
Um, the most recent hobby class RC stuff I've done was in crawling. I found that I like the crawler, not from in a competition thing. I could care less. But when we go camping or whatever, it's a really fun activity to go out and just kind of see what kind of lines you can get on the natural terrain and see what
Yeah.
kind of stuff you can get across or around.
There's not much to do with that out here in the Midwest where everything's just flat.
So we went camping at a Lake Almanor um, several years ago, and taking those out there with the kids, and my father-in-law has them, and we found this nice outcropping of rock that just had all kinds of cool lines, and we were following each other on it and stuff, and it was a lot of fun. So
Yeah, it's one
I
of those
would like,
hobbies that sharing with kids and grandkids is fantastic. I mean, I picked up these off of AliExpress for my 4-year-old, and I
mhm,
bought two of them at Christmas time for her, and she has a blast racing those around out here in the garage.
yeah,
My son started doing it when I got him the Losi Mini T. I think he
mhm,
for his second or third birthday. Uh,
mhm,
that's something that just spans generations. Everybody loves doing it.
yeah, yep, it's fun.
It is. Well, I think we'll call it there unless you have anything else you'd like to add. Again, I thank you for coming on and chatting with me for a bit and sharing some of your story. Uh, and I'll make sure that I leave links to your YouTube page in the description on this video and uh, in the description for the podcast and all the places that podcasts show up.
Awesome.
And look forward to watching more content and getting inspired to spend more money on things that I can't afford.
So yeah, for sure. I appreciate you calling me on here. This is fun. And it definitely is a mutually beneficial um, thing with the content creation, and I'm enabled to satisfy my build addiction, and give that uh, I guess the push, or the viewers are interested in what's being built. And yeah, it's to be able to do it for something that I like to do anyway is cool.
Yeah.
And within such a cool community and friendly chat environment.
Yeah, it's extremely entertaining to watch people buy stuff because they see you build it and then tell you to build things because they see it and then
Yep.
end up buying it. It's extremely fun and entertaining.
I
Uh,
wouldn't have thought in any time that I would have been able to stand in front of a camera and talk to 600 people and about building something and have it be okay.
yeah,
And
it's it's definitely the highlight. My Sundays normally 1 o'clock fold laundry and set the iPad up there and uh we watch the stream. Um,
good to hear.
the even the old lady uh enjoys watching your streams.
Awesome.
Well, again, I thank you. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you on stream. And um, look forward to hopefully meeting you in person if you make it out this way for Midwest Rep Fest in June. And
Yeah, I hope to make it out there. We'll see what the rest of the schedule looks like.
yeah, life can always take us in weird directions.
Of course. Awesome. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you.